So 2021 is officially over, and while there were some not so great parts of the year, I did read a lot of great books this year. So we're gonna focus on that in this video and just kind of forget about all that other stuff. Hi, my name is Sarah Freshly and welcome to Freshly Read Books. So I've got a list of 10 books here, and I'm gonna go through them from my 10th place to my first place. Now I'm just gonna be saying very little about each of these books because I've talked quite a bit about them in the past, and I know these videos are always just fun to see, like, what are the top 10? So if you wanna learn more about any one of these books, I'll be linking all of the videos that I have talked about each of them in the description below, and I'll also be adding cards so that while I'm talking about the book, you can just head on over to that video if you want to learn more. So in my number 10 spot is actually the only thriller to make it onto the list this year. That is One by One by Ruth Ware. This was actually one of the first books I read this year, and I was happy to see that it was my favorite Ruth Ware that she's written so far, and also that it lived up to what I was hoping it would be. It hits on a lot of my favorite thriller tropes, that being in a cold location, being stuck for some reason, specifically due to the elements I really liked, because it's like a snowed in atmosphere basically, and we've got a close cast of characters, of course, because they're stuck in one location, so you get to know each of the characters really well. I love stories like that, and I was really pleased to see what Ruth Ware did with this book. I had a lot of fun reading it. At number 9, we have Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This book was shortlisted for the Booker 2021 prize and was just an absolute adventure of a novel. It follows two protagonists. One is a female pilot in 1950 that is aiming to circumnavigate the globe, hence the Great Circle, and the other is an actress that is in modern times playing her in a movie. What I loved most about this book is just the way the characters were written. Like, the story, the plot as a whole is just great because it's this grand story. It's a very all-encompassing story. It's not just about the flight itself, but there's so much more that goes into it. But really, Shipstead just did a fantastic job writing the characters. She really brought them to life, and not just like the main characters, but the side characters. And I really loved getting to know them. Next up, we have a book that I actually own, which is Brief Interviews with Hideous Men by David Foster Wallace. This is a collection of short stories, and it's very weird and meta and sometimes grotesque, but I'm pretty sure I'll be returning to this one over and over, specifically the pop quiz section. Did she say pop quiz? Yes, I did. Next up at number 7, we have another short story collection, or technically short stories, and also a novella, which shares the title of the collection itself, The Office of Historical Corrections by Daniel Evans. This was an absolutely fantastic collection, super cohesive in the themes of all of the stories, while also not just saying like the same thing over and over. I think she did a great job in putting these together. And also just like the characters themselves in the story were very well written for it being in such a concise form. At number 6, we have Outline by Rachel Cusk. Yes, Cusk fans, I get it now. This book takes place in 10 conversations that feel very real and kind of like mundane, but in like a really great way, if that makes sense. Like, this was just a book that I kind of just wanted to live in and be there, and it felt like you were, because it was just written so realistically. Next up, we have There by Tommy Orange. This follows 12 Indigenous people in the US making their way to the Big Oakland powwow. Again, this book was just great character writing, especially considering how many characters there were, and also like the book is very short, so it just covered so much in conversations in space in the US, because they're coming from all over, and different perspectives of people that have common lived experiences, but also have very different ideas about different things. So yeah, absolutely wonderful book. And also just the way it's written, the writing style, it makes it a very quick read. So if you're looking for something along those lines, I highly recommend it. Speaking of a quick read, Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This book is written like a screenplay, so that makes it very quick to get through, and it focuses on minority groups in the US and the roles they've historically been allowed to play, and I mean that both literally and figuratively, like the roles in society, but also acting roles, because this book plays with what is real and what is not, but in this world of creating a TV show, and sometimes you don't fully understand, is this really happening or is this part of the TV show, especially because everything looks like a script. And while it does focus on Asian Americans. It actually includes a lot more than that. Also, there is like a bit of humor thrown into the writing style, which makes this book like just doing a lot of different things at once. But Charles Yu does such a great job at it that it doesn't feel like it's at the detriment to any one of those things. At number 3, we have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Wait, is this a non-literary fiction book that made it this high up on the list? How'd you get up here? Yes, this book was so good at what it was and also was so perfectly up my alley that it has done what few books can do when it comes to me looking back on my reads of the year. Typically, literary fiction dominates the upper half of my list, of my ranking, but Project Hail Mary was just so wonderful. The pacing of it was so great and it just would change things up and always kept me interested, and already I kind of want to just read it again, and I just read it like last month, so I would highly recommend picking this up if you are at all interested in the premise. This book largely takes place on a spaceship and then has flashbacks to what led up to this trip into space, this mission needing to occur. And it just takes so many twists and turns along the way, but also has that great problem solving element to it that I think Andy Weir really became known for after publishing The Martian. And so it takes all the great parts of that and then makes it into an even grander story and longer, which I was worried about, but still had the same feelings as I did with The Martian, where I just constantly wanted to be reading it while I was in it, despite it being like maybe twice the length of The Martian. At number 2, we have Light Perpetual by Frances Spufford. This was longlisted for the Booker 2021 prize and it was my personal favorite from the list. This book is super upfront right away with what the premise of the entire novel is, and it gives you this chance to be thinking about that all the way through. So it has these themes of what makes a life worth living, and is a life always worth living even if there's some not so great parts to it, but also just talking about what really is a life in general, because it's so many different things and there's no ending up at a certain point. You don't end up good or end up bad. There's all of these actions that you take and choices that you make throughout your life that are all encompassing and are so hard to determine whether or not that was good or bad. And I think that many stories, we look at characters, and even if they're written in a way that makes them multidimensional, it's still kind of hard to see because you see them in just one moment in time. Whereas Light Perpetual puts these lives and like you see little pieces across their life, and you get this larger picture, but you know that you're still just seeing singular days in these persons' lives. It's an absolutely fantastic book. And also the writing style was beautiful. Now, Kieran, if you're watching, I would suggest that maybe you leave now so that you don't have to see what book beat out Light Perpetual as my favorite book. So everybody say bye to Kieran. Bye, Kieran. Bye. Okay, do you think he's gone? Great. At first place, we have At Night All Blood is Black by David Diep. Look at that book, winner of the 2021 International Booker Prize. This book is experimental and kind of all over the place, but in a really fantastic way. And it just did such a good job of portraying the themes that it was working to portray, but in a way that was super unique to this book. And also, not to mention, it's a very short book for having done all of that. There is so much contained in this that I could talk about it for a long time, and I did. I made a video that's just about this book. So if you're curious on my full thoughts, or at least closer to my full thoughts about it, because honestly I could make like a 2-hour video about this book, then I would recommend checking that out. So that is it, my top 10 books for 2021. It has been such a great year of reading and I'm really excited for this next one. Please let me know what your favorites of the year were, and then I'd love to know your thoughts about the books on my list. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Are they on your TBR? Did I maybe move them up your TBR like just a little bit, because that's really all I can hope for. So I guess that's it. Subscribe and stuff if you want to. And I hope that everybody has a very happy new year of reading some really great books. Bye.